So the very first thing I want to do in today's podcast is thank Black Moon Pearl. Once again, Black Moon Pearl left me another really great comment, so I wanted to share it. And thank you again, Black Moon Pearl. She wrote, "Pro Stylist, you are a fabulous stylist and have a great voice to listen to as you educate. I watched your long layered video and finally learned how to correct the steps I was creating when cutting layers and could not figure out what I was doing wrong. You explained to curve a little. I was very happy with my cut for the very first time. Thank you for giving back and sharing your knowledge. I am looking forward to your next videos. Until next time, take care." Well, Black Moon Pearl, that means the world to me. I really appreciate it. Your kind words are super appreciated. I want to thank you so very much again for taking the time to leave that feedback. It really means a lot to me. So, today, on today's video, we are going to be discussing how to create volume in your hair when you blow dry. Just in general, really. Mostly it happens when you blow dry, though. And so, if you guys like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you've got any questions or comments, please put them down in the comment section below. Like Black Moon Pearl, thank you so very much again, Black Moon Pearl. And please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. So, let's talk about today's topic, which is how to create volume in hair. So, here's the thing. You often hear people say, hey, can you cut layers into my hair? Let's assume you've got longer hair below the shoulders. Let's say whether you're a man or woman, you have hair below the shoulders and it always lays flat. So you'll often hear people say, hey, can you cut layers into my hair for volume? Now, the point of cutting layers is you're actually cutting all of the hair in the interior that has nothing to do with the actual outline, right? So if the outline falls to the middle of your back, that is the hair typically that's going to be from your occipital bone down, right? So the hair growing from your occipital bone down to your neck, that's typically going to be the hair that's going to be your outline. This layer, this chunk right here, is going to be what's creating your outline in the middle of your back or wherever it is below your shoulders. Everything above that is really what you're going to be primarily layering to make it shorter than what is the outline, the length of the outline. By making the interior of your hair shorter, the interior is going to be lighter. It's not going to be as heavy, right? The longer your hair is, the heavier your hair is also, right? It's if you've got shorter hair, it's less heavy. That's why it's usually easier to create volume when your hair is above your shoulders. But we're going to talk about below your shoulders because this is where most people struggle with volume because it's long. When it's below your shoulders, it's now technically on the longer side, which means it's on the heavier side. So what you'll do is typically cut layers in the interior that are going to be above shoulder length, possibly. It won't appear that way because the outline and the length are going to be below your shoulder, so it looks like you still have really long hair, which you do. It's just that the interior of your hair is cut short so that because it's shorter, it's less heavy. Because it's less heavy, it's lighter and technically easier to create volume. But there's a misconception that when you cut layers, you're automatically going to have volume. Yes, it is lighter. But here's the reality of volume in your hair. So let me start by rewinding back to when you typically blow dry your hair. When is that? When it's wet, right? You usually get out of the shower and your hair is wet. And that is why you blow dry your hair, to dry it because it's now wet. Well, here's the reality of wet hair. Water is heavy. So if you don't blow dry your hair immediately after you get out of the shower, and I shouldn't say immediately, like the second you walk out. I mean, you could probably, get dressed and, I don't know, put your makeup on if you're doing makeup, or brush your teeth if you're brushing your teeth, whatever. There's obviously some things you can do, but what you don't want to do is let your hair dry too much after you get out of the shower. And the reason for that is because if your hair has water in it, the water is going to weigh your hair down and become heavy. And as it's weighing your hair down because water is heavy, guess what it's doing? It's drying flat against your head. So then when you go to blow dry your hair, after it's already mostly dry and dried up against your scalp because it was wet and heavy, it's a lot more difficult to now get the volume in your hair at that point because it's already dried flat, right? So when hair is dry, it's much more harder to contrive hair into a different shape versus if it's wet. If it's wet, you can kind of control what you want the hair to do in the process of drying. But if that process already happened, it's already dry, then it's a little bit more difficult to now take that dry hair and add volume to it because the roots have already dried flat against your head. Now, here's the other thing. Volume comes from your roots, which is why what I'm sharing with you is so important. Volume doesn't come by blow drying your ends all fluffy. Volume comes from the hair that grows right out of your root, right? So if your hair is flat against your head, then it's going to just lay flat against your head. There's going to be no volume. However, if you blow dry it up in an upward motion, then what's going to happen? If those roots are dried up before they come down, that's where your volume's created. You've got to blow dry those roots in an upward motion while they're wet, while they're damp, before they've dried flat against your scalp if you're going to get volume. That's why you typically see people turn their head upside down and blow dry it, because if their head's upside down, the roots are coming away from their head versus blow drying your hair standing straight up, because if you're blow drying your hair like this, you're just blowing it flat against your scalp. It's one way to obviously create volume. That's pretty easy. Just kind of sit in a chair and throw your head upside down and start blow drying your roots, because now they're already going against and away from your scalp. So to create volume in your hair, you're going to want to make sure you blow dry it before it's already dry. 2, you're going to want to make sure the part you focus on for volume is blow drying your roots and not your ends. Your ends have nothing to do with your volume. I know a lot of people take a round brush and they're drying here thinking they're creating volume. This hair over here has nothing to do with volume. Your volume is going to come, like I said, from your scalp, where the root of your hair comes off your scalp. That's where you want to take that round brush, or any brush hypothetically. You oftentimes will see people backcomb and tease their hair for volume. Where do they do that? They don't do it down here at the ends. They do it right here at the root. And then they backcomb it and tease it so that it has volume here at the roots. So today's podcast is how to create maximum volume in your hair, right? And the key takeaway here that you want to take is, 1, like I said, if you get out of the shower, don't wait too long for your hair to have already dried flat against your scalp, because once it's dry, it's going to be really difficult to dry it with volume unless you re-wet it again. You're going to have to basically wet your roots all over again. So 1, make sure you don't wait for your hair to dry before you dry it. And 2, make sure that you focus drying that on the roots. I often will tell clients or models, hey, listen, if you want volume but you don't have the time, at least, like I said, throw your head upside down, at least blow dry your roots dry. Just go in here with the blow dryer and lift up so that your roots are being lifted with that volume. Dry that, and then once your roots are dry, if your ends are still damp or wet, it's okay, because you've already got your roots dried in a way that you've created the volume, and then the ends, and the rest of your hair can kind of dry later. Obviously, it's better to dry it all at one shot, but yeah, not everyone's running on time every single day. So if you've got limited time, don't just do this. I mean, if you're going for volume, let's be specific about today's podcast. Don't just blow dry your hair just to get it dry if you want volume. If you're going to spend a little time, basically hurrying up to dry your hair, focus on those roots, and then then maybe you could kind of do this, depending on how much time you have. But get those roots dried first, lift up or tilt your head upside down so that those roots are going away from your scalp. Get that volume, and then maybe just rough dry the rest. Obviously, rough drying the rest is not probably going to make your hair style fall in the best position necessarily. I mean, depending if your hair has texture, if it's curly, if it's wavy, but it's going to get it dry, obviously. And so if your main goal is dry with volume, then, like I said, make sure you focus before it's dry. Make sure you focus blow drying your roots before they've already dried against your scalp, and make sure that you're giving that volume at the roots. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tip, today's podcast. If you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them down in the section below. At the beginning of every podcast, I will thank somebody for leaving me a comment. I really appreciate it when you guys leave me comments. And if you guys like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And I want to thank you guys again so very much for watching and listening to this podcast.